here they are, they're on a time crunch, they're emotional, and they're wasting all of this valuable time going to look at a nursing home or a memory care when they just need an assisted living. So, I mean, it's educate yourself on everything, but it's very good to turn to a professional to really help you guide you through it if you're in a crisis mode, for sure. Welcome to Aging in Style, the podcast dedicated to celebrating aging and what it takes to do it well. I'm Lori Williams. I'm a certified senior advisor and senior housing expert. In each episode, you'll learn stories of older adults who are thriving in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and in some cases in their hundreds. Whether you're an older adult or the child of an older adult, this podcast is filled with insightful resources, organizations that are doing incredible work, and stories that will inspire you to volunteer, learn, and who knows, maybe even skydive in your golden years. Hi, welcome to another episode of Aging in Style. Today, we are introducing a new segment. We've been getting a lot of questions that come in, and we want to address them. And we thought it'd be fun to have Anna, my amazing producer, on to ask the questions and kind of have a little back and forth and see if we can answer the questions that people are leaving for us. So welcome, Anna.
Hi, Lori. I love to be the voice of the public. I'm honored with the task.
Yay. Good.
Yes.
So we had a question come in. Actually, a couple of times this question has come in. So I will leave it to you to ask the question.
The first question that we have is, how soon should I start planning? So I've heard you talk a lot about how if your loved one has dementia, you have to start planning for it and not leave it to the last minute. But for everyone else who is experiencing other situations, how soon should I start planning? Because I hear there's a lot of waiting times in some places, so I want your take on it.
Okay, that is an excellent question. And I believe that everyone should start a plan early as possible, be proactive. And not everyone does that. And most people do wait till there is, an illness or a fall or an emergency situation that comes up. So the reason that you shouldn't do that is that some places do have waiting list, or, if you're very specific, you want a 2-bedroom apartment in a senior apartment in a certain area, you need to be proactive and get on a waiting list for that. So the answer to that is the earlier you can plan, the better. And, we never know what the future is going to hold for us. Could you fall and break a hip? Or I had a lady recently who was actually driving around looking at senior apartments and was in a car accident. And the car accident was so severe, like she was going from one place where she thought she was just going to move to a senior apartment to she was going to need some help and need assisted living. So, we just don't know what life has in store for us. So it's best to prepare.
Wow, that's wild. But also at the same time, I often hear people that say, I get emotional thinking about it, just to think about my life not being the way it is. So what would you tell people that are either one, overwhelmed, and two, struggling with that transition of thought?
Everyone is different in how they approach it. So, I would say the majority of people want to stay in their homes as long as they can, which I completely understand. I want to also. So if you are planning that and you're in good health still, I think it's important, if you're trying to stay home, go ahead and do some things to your house, like put in some grab bars, do things. We've done podcasts about this, about fall risk and how that goes up after the age of 65. So if you're wanting to stay home, great, but make sure you are safe and put in all those different safety features that you can. I know it's probably easy for me to say, don't be afraid, but don't be afraid of going to explore, because you don't know what you don't know. And so many people will call me and they're like, oh, everything's a nursing home. Well, no, there's some absolutely beautiful senior apartments out there that I've gone into. And I'm like, hello, can I move in? Because it costs a lot of money to maintain. I just had an issue with my pool filter. I'm putting in a handicapped bathroom right now. There's house costs are just exorbitant. Taxes are going up. So you have to keep in mind all of those things, all those expenses of being a homeowner, and see, does that outweigh having more of just like a freedom lifestyle, if you will, where you don't have to worry about all that stuff. You just go and do and have fun. So if you're at a point where you're needing a little care, There's nothing wrong with looking into assisted living, or if you proceed down the road, maybe you've been diagnosed with Parkinson's. Parkinson's can take a long time to progress, but I think it's important to know what the options are and go and visit some assisted livings. Just see what it's about, how much it actually costs. Don't go on what your friend's neighbor's sister said, And so many people will tell me, oh, I heard this, and it's completely incorrect information.
As you were talking about it, I was thinking, is there an age, a minimum age that would start getting ready to plan? Just start looking and thinking about it.
That's kind of a two-part answer I have for that. I think definitely in your 50s or younger, you really should have your things in order, start putting things in order, because you don't know when something is going to happen. And we've talked a lot about putting the binder of information together. And, I think I'm a perfect example of that. My husband and I had started putting that information together, but I'm 58. He was 62, had a stroke. And thank God we had talked about a lot of things, and I knew where a lot of things were, but I wish that I had, done more, been more proactive. So I think that's very important to have all the information, because we don't know when something's going to happen, and our life can change in an instant. And people say that all the time, life can change in an instant, and 100% it can. So I would say if there's any health issues, start looking earlier. So, if you're 65 and there's some health issues, or there's some, maybe mild cognitive impairment, something like that, go ahead and start looking. Everyone else, it's an individual thing, but I do think it's important to know what is available out there. Do your research, know what's in your area, and understand the terminology, which again is why we do this podcast, where we talk about, what Medicare is versus Medicaid, and physical therapy and occupational therapy. We want you to be educated, because when something happens, you're already in an emotional state. So you're dealing with that. Plus, you don't understand all this terminology that's being thrown at you. So again, the whole purpose of this podcast is to educate you.
And that's such a good reminder to the listener. Hey, go back and listen to episodes that maybe you have never heard before. A little bit of a refresh, especially on that episode binder. I'll make sure that the links are in the description of this episode. But just look at what you don't know and just start, you're going around on a drive, just play that episode so you have that understanding, or at least the terms. If the person is overwhelmed, it's better to just do something.
Exactly. And then if you can't figure this out, that's why you have people like me and services like this, that we will help walk you through it. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and they've gone and looked at places that were just not the right places. It was not what they needed or their family member needed. So here they are, they're on a time crunch, they're emotional, and they're wasting all of this valuable time going to look at a nursing home or a memory care when they just need an assisted living. So, it's educate yourself on everything, but it's very good to turn to a professional to really help you, guide you through it if you're in a crisis mode, for sure.
That's good to know. And let's quickly touch on wait times that you talked about and wait lists. Is there a type of assisted living or senior housing that is kind of more available, one that is known for their longer waiting times?
So a lot of our smaller residential care homes, the really good ones, will have wait times. So, and it depends. It's because they're smaller, maybe they're taking 6 to 8 people. I have one that I don't think she's had an availability in over a year. And then there's other things to look at too, because some will do shared rooms. Well, if you don't want a shared room, then you may have to wait longer. Or maybe you want a shared room to save money and there's nothing available. The other type that we're seeing wait times on are the senior apartments. So those are becoming really popular. They're just like a traditional apartment, but for seniors. And some of those we're seeing, they're filling up pretty quick, and there's wait times on those. And especially if you're looking for like a 2-bedroom. 2 bedrooms can be really hard to come by. In assisted living, some will offer 2 bedrooms, but those are usually full. And then if you have specific requests, like I want first floor and I want a patio and I want a 2-bedroom, you're going to have a wait. So that's why it's good to do this in advance. If you're thinking, even if you're a couple of years out, let's go look at places. And if you find one that you absolutely fall in love with, get on the wait list. And, when something comes available, they'll call you. If you're still not quite ready, just stay on the wait list.
And do you know, this is a question that just came up, so I'm sure that people will have it too. Do you need to pay deposits?
Some will have you pay a deposit, not all if you're just on a wait list. So everyone's different in how they work it. The care homes typically will not take, it's not a deposit unless, you're definitely going to be moving in. I mean, if they're 6 months, a year out, they're not going to take a deposit for that. They'll just keep in touch. Typically with those, it's better if you keep in touch, like if you're working with a placement service like me, that we stay in touch and check in on that. It's just a little different than the bigger corporate places, just have a better system, I guess, of reminding people that, hey, we just had something come up than some of the smaller care homes.
Yeah, especially because your service is free. That's the thing that I'm like always surprised is how people don't know, right? Like just give you a call and just get a little bit of peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I agree. And the funny thing is, I can't tell you how many people will say, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known about you 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I'm like, we're trying to get known. We're putting it out there. But yeah, we just make it easy for you. And that's our whole goal, to educate and get you all the resources that you need. Because it's tough. It's not an easy thing, especially, like I said, if you're in a very emotional state, something has happened, a fall or an illness or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's free. Why not? So, all right, Lori, I think that was the only question pertaining to this. So thank you for letting us know about it.
Okay, you're welcome. And y'all keep asking questions. That's what we're here for, to answer those questions and then lead you back to the resources, as we may have done a podcast or two that already covered what you have a question about. So be sure and go back and listen to all the podcasts, and please share with your friends and family, because that's our mission, to educate people and make senior living not so scary and confusing. So thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.